Ladies and gentlemen, this next panel discussion is going to be about balancing innovation and efficiency, building growth engines in retail. To moderate this panel, join me in welcoming on stage Shwetal Basu, CMO, Shoppers Stop. Let's hear it for the moderator of this panel. Papa John's India. Let's put our hands together for this panel, ladies and gentlemen.
And thank you for being a lovely audience. Look forward to a lot of engaging questions here. I really love the panel, I mean, it's retail, but all the industries are so different, right? From salons to lingerie to fashion, food. Dava India, again, is doing such interesting work, and software. I mean, it's interesting. Look forward to a lot of conversations here.
Not to forget somebody like you who's got all of us under one roof, huh?
That's Shoppers Stop for you. That's Shoppers Stop for you. Okay, my first question is for you, Satyan. Satyan, I love Celio. Okay, I love the fabric, and with every season, I like the way you innovate with the fabric, the design, the fits, all of that. And I love the way you maintain consistency in the quality. Your latest collection is really outstanding, spring, summer. Tell me, I mean, it's important to keep innovating, but it's also important to achieve operational efficiencies, right? In this growing market with so much of competition, what are your views in terms of how do you balance between innovation and operational efficiencies?
Yeah, nice question. So honestly, one, it starts with your product architecture, where you really want to, so what does your consumer come to you for? And I think that's something which is your basic fundamental USP of the brand, and which brings consumers again and again. And I think that's where you've got to be consistent. You have to deliver every time on his expectations. So that's something which we really keep our fundamentals, 45% of our range between essentials and essentials upgrade. And then we have an architecture where we actually have trending now products and innovation. And that sits on this. So this is basically from a product architecture sense. But for us, honestly, from a culture sense, what does innovation mean is actually getting our own people to really being open from a culture of all knowing to a culture of learning always. So how do we, especially post-pandemic, we've seen the agility required, the volatility in the market, the uncertain times which come, and how do you really continue to be open to innovating, trying out new things, open to change, and then that's the sort of a culture which you build on innovation. But the operational efficiency part, one mantra is execute without excuse. So once you've put your strategy, you put your vision, you put your strategy, you put your goal, you've identified the growth levers, what do you as a team, once you've got this alignment with the team, how do you really go all out in executing it without excuse and executing it, which actually brings in operational efficiencies? Doing the same thing again and again, but doing it in the best possible manner. Sometimes it becomes monotonous and you start losing your rigor on that. But I think when you continue to be on that, that's where, if you see some of the cricketing teams, you see in sports, people who really get that part right is where I think for me, balancing innovation and consistency. So it's not that because you're doing the same thing again and again, is that you're not innovative. It's not that. But once you've decided that this is the new thing which I want to do, but once you, on how do you really do it better every time? But you do it with its sort of a rigor and that mindset of executing without excuse.
Very well said. I think retail is all about detail and consistency. I mean, it's something that all of us know in retail, where it's said that nazar hati durgatna ghati, right? The second one is one of my favorite questions, and I'm going to get a perspective from multiple industries out here, is about customer engagement and experience. Because eventually it's a product that is available everywhere, but it's all about how do you engage with the customers, experience that you give them that allows you to really do well and build a consistent business model. Samir, this is for you. I mean, being the salon business, experience is the most important thing for you, right? So how do you leverage, whether it is technology or experience, in terms of from a scalability perspective?
Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Samir. I run a chain of salons which is called Lux. We're about 204 salons in 51 cities. I'm based out of Bombay, building the brand in rest of India, where our distribution is kind of patchy because the brand is primarily from North India. So our business, and I've been in the beauty business for almost about 20 years, worked for companies like Kaya and VLCC, JCB, and now Lux. I think in the last 20 years, and especially in the last post-COVID era, what I'm seeing, beauty and personal care is at a growth which is just not, I mean, one can't measure. Every day in the morning we wake up and there's a new trend. There's something which a customer is bringing to the salon and saying, "Mere ko is tarika ka haircut chahiye," ya "I want this color of nails or this color of hair color or this style of nails." So we are, while we have very good partners, global partners like L'Oreal, etc., but I think today what is happening is because of the whole, melting down of digital boundaries. I think women, men, every day in the morning would be surfing Instagram or looking at what trends and taking it over the weekend to the salon. What we are trying to do at the salon level is, yes, while we are trend forward, it's a very trending business, but one has to be very careful in suggesting the right kind of trends which would suit an individual. Such a diverse country, such a diverse nation, 51 cities, operations. So while we would not be able to do anything which is standardized because this is a very personalized and individual business, but what we're trying to do is to create 2 or 3 lookbooks for the brand, which would feature primarily 70% female haircuts or female makeup or whatever, which are trending for the season, like a summer thing or like a festive thing. 30% for us, lesser males. We don't have much to do as far as men is concerned, but that's a growing business. And ultimately, all this goes about in creating experiences and engagement at the salon level. If we are not able to show you what is not relevant, don't go by what is trending on the gram. I think it's very important to show you what is more relevant to you, to your lifestyle, to your personality. And if you're able to do that, at least to 60-70% of our consumers, I think we're in a happy space. Elevating customer service is a continuous journey. And especially when we have women like you coming to the salon, we have to be on our toes. Not only give you a great service, but also take care of the environment, the whole experience. Men are less fussy people. वो आएंगे haircut करा के चले जाएंगे, but women who are going to spend 2 hours in the salon, so right from the quality of the beverage or the quality of the washrooms or the quality of the person who's giving you the service, all this we have to be in that 2-hour window, we have to be continuously innovating. So very small example I'll give before I end. Everybody goes to the salon here and you're asked for coffee or tea. We've now tied up with, I can't name the brand at this stage because we're still in advanced stages of closure. But now, for example, we are now going to serve you coffee of a particular brand. And it is going to be free of cost from our side. So you can have an iced Americano, you can have a cappuccino, you can have, it's the same thing. Coffee is the same thing, but the way the menu is going to be presented, paid by us, so you can choose from a cold beverage in the summer and from a nice warmer beverage in the winter part of India. So these are all small customer experiences tool, which we want you to carry a memory when you leave the salon. That's about it. Yeah?
Interesting. would love to have a little more conversation on this, Sameer. While, because when it comes to salon business and whatever I know of the salon business, while there are certain percentage of the experience you can standardize with a lot of processes, product, tie-ups, and you can take it to the next level. But your people and skill sets are extremely important, right?
But that's the most important thing.
That hairdresser whom I'm comfortable with, when he moves, you start wondering what next. So how do you hold on to your customers, and how do you make sure that your people also stay with you?
See, I think the two biggest people in our business is the customer, like all of our businesses. But I think in our case, because this is a very hygiene business, it's like every 20, 25 days you would need to go to the salon, if not earlier. And the service provider. In our industry, there is still a stigma which is attached to working in a beauty parlor. Many of our audiences, including on the panel, would not like to have their son or daughter working in a salon, very honestly speaking at this stage, because it's still not considered a right profession. You would say कि यार उसको graduation करो, engineering करो, chartered accountancy करो, but salon में एक hairdressing का role नहीं होता. So there is a bit of a stigma which continuously is attached to it. So the intellectual capabilities of that person which is coming to work in the salon are lesser compared to a organized job where he or she would be working. That makes it much more challenging for us to manage them at a personal, at an emotional level. It is not, you can't treat that person as a brand manager or as a factory manager. There is a very, very strong personal relationship which you have to have with the employee, because that translates to what you would have with consumers. Water will flow. I think attrition in our industry is 40%, 45%, which is okay, because a lot of entrepreneurships are born. It's very easy to open a salon and a beauty parlor. But if you're able to hold on to the core people, is what I believe in. I think that's where the journey is complete. The customer comes and sees a familiar face in the salon, whether it's the manager or is the beautician or the hairdresser. She knows it's the right place. अगर सब change हो जाएंगे तो there is a bit of a scare in the mind of the consumer. So we can't hold on to everyone, but I think the core is where CEOs like us take the leadership in managing these people extremely well. Hopefully so far.
Yeah, in retail, power of people still remains. However tech comes in, I think power of people is very important here. So I would love to hear your views on it. Again, food is a different industry altogether, where, again, a very, very competitive space when it comes to the food industry, right? What's your view on the customer experience?
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sudha, and a little outlier here. The only food person maybe in this panel. So my experience with in this 30 years of food industry, and large part of it managing international markets, is that customer experience should not be something that's convenient for me as an organization. Many a times, and especially in India, I see that as a difference. We give customers something that's convenient for me to provide. I think customer service and engagement is there. You have to do it. If we don't do it, we are going to become history. No longer a good product is good enough. A good service is no longer good enough, because everybody does that, right? Like everybody, in the quick service restaurant gives you a burger, the Swiggies, the Zomatos. That's the norm. So service is anyways the norm. What will differentiate us is the engagement with the customer, is the experience. It's that moment of personalization, if I may say, or that moment of making the customer feel that he is important and it is his moment. And each one of us sitting here, as from the medical or clothing or beauty, each one of us has a little interface. I, as a food connoisseur or a person who is satisfying the hunger needs for a consumer, I have to find out that he's coming to me because he likes eating a pizza, or is he hungry? What does he really do when he comes to me? And over the years of, we have a program called Food Safari, where what we do is we go to various brands of food, which could be right from a fine dine restaurant to a roadside vada pav, everyone. And we try and engage to see what does he or she deliver to the customer, and why do people go to him? And we also cover non-food in this whole safari that we do, and we do it annually once, because that feeds into our strategy for what we want to do for the next coming years. So apart from the food trends and blah blah and all that, the real reason why somebody gets out of his house and comes to you to eat is to make him, that moment of truth is something that we have to make him feel special. And I feel in today's world, making that personalized is very important. I'm sure whenever we go to a same restaurant, and if the server or the manager recognizes you and say, "Oh, Mrs. Shankar Narayan, so lovely to see you," I just feel so good just by him knowing my name. Some people do that better than the others. I think those techniques are older now. With artificial intelligence at play, you've got so much data, so much power in hand, that what and why a consumer comes to you. I mean, I can also share this, that in China or in Korea, I've seen there are teddy bears who sit in a restaurant. So if you are walking alone to a restaurant to eat something, and it's probably taboo in some countries, people would see you in a certain light, or you might feel very lonely. So they keep these huge, beautiful looking teddy bears that you can sit with you and just enjoy a cup of coffee. While we might laugh at that occasion, but I was amazed to see in China that so many people were sitting with teddy bears. And I did randomly take photographs to think, ye kyun kar rahe hain, But then it solved that thing of, I don't want to be seen lonely in that place. So I'm saying that little personalization is so important to your business, that what you can bring to table for that customer and engage the customer through artificial intelligence, anime, or whatever. There are millions of ways to do. But whatever you can do, depending on which area that you operate, is important.
That's an interesting perspective. Hopefully, with the amount of warmth that we have in India, we don't need teddy bears, at least for the next couple of decades. Would love to hear you on Triumph, right? I mean, it's such an intimate category. With women's lingerie is, again, something that not many women talk about it openly. How do you use customer experience to enhance your business scalability?
Good afternoon. I'm Ankur. I represent Triumph Lingerie, not bikes. A lot of people have asked me that. So we are a 138-year-old brand with a lot of legacy. And I mean, the more premium you are, the more demanding the customer is. And like a lot of people have already said that, a good product is not enough. Good service is not enough. And especially in the, plethora of brands and, so much clutter, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you have more mind space of the consumer? I think it all depends on, the brand persona, the kind of experience and the kind of engagement you do. And, one of the most important things is also building trust and, how you get the consumer again and again back to the store, back to your, e-commerce platforms, and keep the consumer engaged so that, the consumer does not forget you. As soon as the consumer is like losing the mind space, you go back to him or her. So I think, one of the things that we do really well, and since it's about intimacy, it's about personalization, and, one thing does not fit all. So we do a lot of consumer research and, work with the consumer, being manufacturers also, in terms of understanding trends, in terms of understanding what the consumer really wants. And through that, one of the very interesting things, unlike a lot of Western markets, what we found in India is that more than 60% women actually don't know their right bra size. You'll be amazed, and even in metros. So you might think you are wearing the right bra, but you are actually not. And with this revelation, for the past few years, we are doing this bra fit challenge. It's a very, very unique way to, get the consumer engaged and then also, educate and build that trust. So, we do this in our offline stores as well as, the likes of Shopper Stop. So we incentivize the consumer. The consumer comes in and we say that, okay, do you know your bra size? They'll obviously say, yes, this is my size. And then you give a challenge. And then, our experts will actually, give you the entire education about what's the right bra, are you wearing the right one or not, what's the right size. And this just not it's not just an engagement initiative, but also a lot of customers who understand that they are not wearing the right bra, and when they wear the right one, how comfortable it is, and then it is so much about your well-being over the long term. So I think it creates a lot of trust, and some of them might not buy at that time because of the price or whatever, but then you have that mind space that they are not just selling, but they are also educating you. So this is something that we've continued to do, and builds a lot of trust. And because it's about personalization, one bra at a time, one customer at a time. So this has really worked for us. And what we've done as an extension, it's a very difficult category, because for a lot of other products, your husband can buy, your wife can buy, your father can buy. But this is a space where, the very intimate, the end consumer has to buy. And it is not just about, the right size or comfort. It's about the right fit, the right feel, whether you're feeling right, it's about the style. So consumers are becoming more and more demanding. So the extension to this, what we have is like a very, very state-of-the-art sort of on our website. We also do a right size calculator. So this is again very educational, because when a lot of consumers come onto the website, they find it very intriguing that, okay, how can I know the right size online? And this is not what a lot of brands do. So I think it's all about engaging the customer, even if the customer is not buying, how you build for the future, how the customer actually remembers you, comes back to you, and it's about consistency. And being an international brand, it is even more pertinent that you give a consistent experience across the world. So that is something which is really important, that it's not about just the customer coming in and you are engaging the customer, but it's also about the consistent experience. If you go to any other part of the world, the Triumph experience should be very, very similar. So that goes with a lot of training, with a lot of in-store things that we do, a lot of consistency. So I think this is one of the fundamental things for brands to be consistent all the time, and that experience does not change.
Consistency remains at the core. Dr. Sujit, quite impressed with the work that you're doing at Dava India. I mean, I loved the conversation that we were having in that little speakers lounge. Would want to hear your thoughts in terms of how do you really get to know your customer better, understand the real India better, and then accordingly deliver customer experiences.
We have two kinds of customers. One is chronic customers, and the other are acute customers. Chronic customers are customers who have chronic ailments. It could be gastric, peds, diabetic, cardio, etc. And acute customers are customers maybe who have a headache, who have a cold and flu, etc. So if it's a chronic customer, we work with them extremely closely through multiple technological acumen that we have to ensure that we give the best of service to the customers. There is one constant mantra for all our retail stores, even for the wellness products, for the Ayurvedic products, for the OTC products, that do not oversell. Unlike other retailers who wants to push products for increasing the ticket value, for us, it's a mandate to all the pharmacists in the store that give only what is required to the consumer. Don't need to oversell to just increase the ticket size. This is actually anti-retail phenomena. In retail, you always hear that how to increase the ticket size. We would rather want more people to coming into the stores, more people to understand the value and the power of right kind of sales that goes through. So it is extremely important that, whether you have a short-term vision or you have a long-term vision for the organization that you're part of and country at a large. So with that whole perspective, we saw in the last 1 or 2 years that customers are also becoming more sensible. They understand that, whether they are getting fooled, you can fool a customer once, twice, thrice, then they understand. We don't want a customer to take products and just keep it back at their home. That's not customer satisfaction. The true customer satisfaction is when you sell right. So for our chronic customers, if it's, as what I said, if it's a diabetic, cardio, etc., we ensure that they take the right amount of products, what is needed for them, we give them the desired experience in terms of the medicines and the non-medicinal products like wellness products that would work on the similar ailments. And for the acute customers, for example, if someone is having a headache, then of course, you give a medicine of the headache and he or she may need a pain balm. But that's it. You should not do anything more than that. That's not retailing, is what it should be.
So it's all about being honest with the customer. And
Yes,
being
and that's a
real
very
with the
strong
customer.
philosophy that we drive it through.
That's
Yeah.
there. I love that thought. Yeah. Sameer, in the speakers lounge, you're talking me through your expansion plans and how you're planning to expand your footprint in a couple of cities, right? With experience being at the core where your business is concerned, and that's being the core philosophy in terms of expansion and growth. What are the kind of challenges that you foresee or you face today in terms of scalability in a sustainable manner, rather?
I think what we are witnessing is a talent crunch, and it's a very normal thing which happens. I also come from a small town called Allahabad. I did not want to work in Allahabad. I wanted to study in Delhi, and I wanted to make a career in Bombay. That goes same. That's a similar philosophy a beautician or a hairdresser would like to do so. So while there are immense opportunities in tier 2 towns and tier 3 cities that we are seeing from a consumer side, everybody is wanting that. But there is a definite crunch as far as talent is concerned, which is wanting to work in these cities. So, as looks or as a very professional approach that we would like to do is that if you are not able to give quality experience through the service provider, then I would rather not go to that city. Otherwise, there is a backlash which is very severe because I am not able to give that quality experience, not in terms of the interiors, which I can make, but in terms of the service. So that is perhaps which is holding us back from really going into tier 3 cities. We ventured. We've gone to a Jhansi, we've gone to a Jabalpur, but I still feel the journey for beauty businesses, at least in the service, not in the product. Product can go across to everywhere. But in the services business, it is restricted to maybe tier 1 cities. So manpower is a definite crunch, trained manpower. Nobody wants to go back. It's only every small town resident wants to come and build his or her career in the bigger cities. So that is a crunch which is holding us back. And I really don't have a solution. I've spent 2 decades in this business. Very difficult for me to convince somebody to go and build a career in, say, Bilaspur at this stage, even though the person might belong to that. So currently that is where we are stuck.
Interesting challenges here. Retail is consistently changing as an industry, especially when it comes to food industry as well, right? The scenario and how eating out was, I remember as a child, eating out was more of an occasion, a birthday or a celebration. While today, I don't think we are limited to those kind of spaces. And there are so many different ways of eating out, whether you order in, or choices in terms of cuisines to fast food and all of that. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on this in terms of how are you adapting to the retail changes that are happening up. And before that, would love to know if you have plans of entering India once again.
Yes. So we were in India many years back and we retraced our steps. And then we are looking at coming back in 2024, end of the year. Knowing that India is an extremely crowded market for pizzas, it's not going to be easy again this time. And the challenges remain as always to what Sameer said, that employment engagement and quality of food and all that is always in price point. I think India is a extremely value conscious country where bringing value to the consumer in the offerings that you have, that language to the consumer is very important. What seems value to me may not seem value to somebody else, because somewhere you are not translating that information to the consumer. So I think that's going to be a big challenge to say, what as Papa John's, when I come by when I'm sourcing the best tomatoes out of Nasik, crushing it in the farm and getting it to you on your table with no preservatives. What is the importance of eating a food without preservatives? Which probably most people don't know. Like we just had this conversation back there. We don't know what we are. We think 100 times before we are buying an Apple phone or before we're buying the dress or before we put a product on our face or cut our hair, but we don't think twice before putting that food into our mouth.
So a lot of awareness and education, that's extremely
So
important
that's
for
what-
you in this
that's-
changing scenario.
Yes. I think that's going to be a challenge in India, plus a boon, because I think as a brand, we are quite ahead of it. And so I think consumers are discerning. So if you present them, which, to your point earlier, if you're honest, if you're transparent on what you've got to offer, you engage them on how you want to offer it, I think you can succeed. It's just that you have to recognize that and bring it to table.
Interesting. Ankur, wanted to get your perspective as well on this. I mean, you already covered a couple of pieces around, the changing strategies and how strategies are evolving, especially when you spoke about experiences. Would you like to add a little more to it in terms of how you see your strategies evolving from here?
This industry is like very, very rapidly changing, and there is a lot of innovation that's coming in. So what consumers wanted before and what they want now, it's very, very dynamic, And like I said, with the Gen Z coming in, they just don't want, technology. They just don't want like the right fits or feel, but they also want to look good, And even if it's intimate, but what is important for them is how I look good, how I am more confident, and it's also about individuality, it's also about personalization. So in terms of our strategy, one thing being, of course, the market leaders and manufacturers for over a century, we read a lot of trends. We read a lot of you need to actually know the consumer really well. What is the consumer looking for? What are the consumer's problems? And one of the things which we've seen is that even for one size, it does not fit the everyone. So two individuals might have the same size, but might not fit really well for them. So we have a lot of revolutionary technologies, which actually take the shape while you move. Also, they take the shape. So we've got Smart Series, which is like a very, very new technology. It's a 3D technology, which is intuitive and which actually personalizes for each woman, not just while you are like personalized in terms of your fit and feel, but also while you're on the move. So if you are running, if you are moving, if you are walking, so a lot of these kind of innovations, it's really, really important for the customer. And then, like I said, it's not just about innovative technologies. It's not just about the feel. It's also about how you look good. So that raises the bar, because then you have to come up with new colors, new prints. So I think a lot of that is very, very rapidly changing. And then with post-COVID especially, there is such a huge boom in athleisure. Lingerie brands which were focusing on one direction. Now all of a sudden, athleisure was a very small part of our business, and now you see everyone just running behind athleisure. So that's how the dynamic the industry is. And then, loungewear, which is another new thing that is really catching up post-COVID, because, you are sitting at your home and all of a sudden, with the virtual meetings and, all of that, everything is completely changed. So loungewear, which was like such a small category, like maybe 3-4 years back, suddenly it has become like such a big business, and you have so many new entrants coming up. So I think it's very, very dynamic. It's very, very fast changing, and how you keep pace with it and how you solve problems before anyone else does, I think that's really important. So, but we are really customer first and getting a lot of innovation. Like I was talking before, we've come up with a temperature regulating fabric. These are some of the things that you don't think of maybe, 10, 15 years back. But now, since consumers are living in so many different parts, so many different climate conditions and temperatures, so this is another technology that if you are living in in a cold temperature, maybe, and it's so intimate, it's with you like for hours and hours. So how do you make it more comfortable for the consumer? So a lot of these trends we have to study, before anybody else studies, and offer those kind of solutions.
Interesting.
And from a product now, another very important trend is that how you personalize for each consumer, not just from a product perspective, but when a consumer is entering a multi-brand outlet, or when the consumer is entering your store, the consumer is going online. So I think even that is becoming so competitive because consumers have become really smart, and there is the boundaries between offline and online are just blurring. The consumer might wake up and Google you online and then go to a store and vice versa. So I think it's really, really important how you are very consistent, and how you also give the consumer the best experience at every touch point. So one thing which we've come up with is like our own patented loyalty program. Good thing is that we are an international brand, so there are so many best practices. And what that does is it plays with artificial intelligence, not just offline, online, but seamlessly for an individual customer. And it actually throws to the customer according to their preferences, their needs, what they are looking for, what colors, what they purchased. So it is moving to that level because customers have a lot of fatigue now, and they get confused with so much of online content that they have a fatigue of scrolling. There are 5 tabs open. So how you help the consumer in that moment of truth that, okay, this is what you purchased, this is what good for you. So we are going to that, and what we've seen is that these personalization techniques, it actually increases the conversion by 2x. So that's what our global trend is. So that's how.
Completely in agreement with you. I think the first thing that you touched upon really well is in terms of the omni, from a customer perspective, he's dealing with a brand, right? Doesn't really matter whether it's online and offline. And in one of my conversations with Meta, I came across this data point which said that 80% of the customers wish list or search online, but they end up buying offline. And today, wish listing is not about just adding it to the cart, it's also mind wish listing that happens, right? So interesting. And I think you beautifully touched upon the point that it's so important to know your customer and then do the personalization in terms of targeting. Very good, very good. And I love the way you spoke about technology in product. I wanted to hear your thoughts, Satyan, on it in terms of, what's your view on using, he spoke about technology in product, right? Can you talk about what Celio is doing in terms of technology when it comes to building customer experience or the customer service at a customer level?
Yeah, Shweta. So first thing for me is technology, not for the sake of technology. What you really, before apparel, retail, I worked with telecom and I worked with consumer electronics. To be frank with you, when I moved to apparel, I was really struggling with data. I was really struggling, Excel sheets, pivot charts, people. So I think fashion, apparel, lifestyle, little laggards on technology, but just because you are a little bit behind doesn't mean you start adapting everything what is technology. So we've been very selective on what we really, so first identifying what are the consumer problems you want to solve for, or what is productivity improvement you want to really do within your organization. How do you really empower your employees to do better work there with the aid of technology. So we set up a blueprint 5 years back, a digital blueprint, and we put 2 buckets. So one was, what are the technology we'll use consumer facing? What are the technology we'll use back-end, non-consumer facing? Just to give you an example on non-consumer facing, we said in apparel, the biggest issue is you have leftover discounting, which actually has a big burden on actually your P&L. So we just went back to the drawing board and said, how could we really improve our merchandise productivity, and what is it that we are doing today? So first, when you keep the consumer in the center, we used to module stores. So we had about 700 point of sale. So what we used to module stores was basis the size and the revenue. You bucket them into 4. This module, this module, this module, this module. But honestly, consumer, you can never bucket consumers as per modules. And how do you really get to each store and each consumer specific? Couldn't have been done manually. With whatever retail planners you have, whatever Excel sheets you do, it just doesn't happen. So that's where we started to adopt artificial intelligence about 4 years back on one, starting from forecasting, buying, allocation, replenishment. And what this does is not only is helping our productivity, reducing leftover, improving first quality sell-through, but it's also getting know that consumer in that region. If Guwahati sells a skinny 28 size, the consumer comes in, he gets more options of that 28 size skinny, which is jeans, which he's looking for. I think it just elevates the consumer experience there also. So this is some a couple of examples on non-consumer facing. But consumer facing, one, I'm a big fan of generative AI. And I'll tell you, for me, it's like the genie is out of the bottle now. And while you cannot be using it everywhere, but it's a strategic tool, we just started to implement in our marketing functions about 4 months back. And we're just starting to do that. For me, I think it just will really not only help our team to free up time and think more creative, but it will also completely change how we are engaging with the consumers. Our production costs will be very different. The way we engage with the consumer, a huge change. When we're starting to use that, we've just done a pilot in the last 3 months, pilot on certain things from a marketing perspective. Oh, it's giving 4x or 5x ROI, and the productivity engagement levels are very different. So I think technology, when you select the right technology, you get the right partner. What is difficult is to understand what technology we need to really get into, because otherwise there is a plethora of things available.
Totally agree.
And as
Totally
organizations, then you start doing piloting, and then you fail, and then you do that. You get your consumer, your own people buy-in then becomes an issue, because you're playing with a lot of things, you're trying, and I think you're making people's life little tough. So while once you understand what is the lever you want to solve for, getting the right technology partner, and then getting your team. So I've always seen it's not the investment which is an issue, or it is not that which actually doesn't let the pilot succeed. It's basically the buy-in of your own people and that mindset that, Baba, this is not going to replace what I'm going to do. So while we've done this consumer facing, and none of our people have lost job. So it's not going to replace, it's only aiding, it's only aiding and it's only helping. So I think technology, not for the sake of technology, identifying what areas you want to solve for, getting the right technology partner on board, and then really thinking sometimes out of the box and really piloting and trying. I think these are things which we are doing at Celio.
Interesting. Gen AI, the new buzzword. But one of my key takeaways from what you said is that, and that typically happens with organizations, right? When you see other organizations and other peers using a lot of data analytics and technology, you suddenly start feeling that, oh, am I losing out the bus? And then you just get into hunting and picking up anything and everything. I think the end state, the purpose, and the reason, what you want to gain out of it, will be very important, which really differs from organization to organization. And then choose the right technology. Because eventually, there's a lot of cost that organizations get into, right? And it's not just the real cost, but it's also about people manpower cost to adopt the whole thing. And then after a few months, you realize that, oh, you're not doing much with it. Then what do you do? Again, you get into the market looking for the technology. I think you've touched upon the topic really, really well, very sharp on that. Moving from technology to data analytics in terms of knowing customers, right? All of us have briefly touched upon how you're using data analytics in our businesses. But here, Dr. Sujit, I would want to hear your views, because when it comes to healthcare, it's amazing the way healthcare is using data and analytics to know your customers and then reach out to them. And especially the work that you're doing in Real India, I would want to understand how you're using data analytics to whether knowing your customer market and reach out to the right people.
So we have 700 plus stores all across the country. We have stores which is in the last mile border of India. So that level we have stores. So it is extremely important for us to understand the consumers or patients of ours. So once you have a physical store, it's so much important to understand that who are those people around your store who are suffering either a geriatric problem, or they have a diabetic issue, they have a cardiac issue, or any other ailments. So those data gets captured to the stores, and through those captured of data, it flows out that how we can work with those patients. Now that is one part of it where technology comes very handy as a tool, and more than that, technology is actually helping to save more and more lives. Technology is ensuring that it can take that leap to reach out to those homes who cannot afford expensive medicine. The other part, what technology is helping, is that you imagine that in one corner of Assam, there is a small tertiary hospital, and that gets linked to our store. So the patient who goes out after the operation and post-operative, they need medicine for 2 months or 3 months. That's very natural. or a OP patient. So there is, when that integration happens, so it's a seamless flow that you build an ecosystem of a very strong, healthy India at a very, very affordable cost. So with the generative AI that we are operating, it is ensuring that the POS, the back end, with the integration of whichever healthcare management system tool that you're operating, we are seamlessly operating towards prescription refillment, towards ensuring that the patient gets what medicines they need without any of the issues that they face, and at a very, very affordable cost.
Lovely, lovely. Now, while we are on the topic of technology, we've got Abhijeet Paudwal here from a software firm, Amrut Software. Would love to hear your views in terms of how do you see technology leading to innovation, leading to the face of retail, and what's the way forward there?
Hello. Thank you so much. First of all, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for the panel being aligned to us, and great audience and right team. So when we consider retailers, we've been in this space for almost 17 years now, and we help both offline as well as online retailers, right? When I say offline, on the likes of most of the panelists over here, plus they're on online as well, right? So when we look at various technologies, in terms of innovation, we see Gen AI, which been the most, spoken word for this event as well as for last 2 years, right? We do see augmented reality, we do see the virtual reality in terms of, creating an immersive experience for the customer, right? In the back end, you have robotics, which plays a lot in, the warehousing side of your world or the supply chain management of the world. But something very intriguing, and I would like to mention over here, is one of the reports that, last week I was just going through, is 73% of the retailers on a daily basis or a regular basis go behind new technologies, right? Out of 73%, only 21% goes to the next level. Of the 21%, only 3% comes to the table of CIO, right? And by the time the technology is implemented, the adoption happens, it takes good 18 months to 24 months. And by that time, wow, there's something new in the market. Naya kya hai, right? There's already something new that has come in the market, right? So I would definitely like to say that, along with being an innovative approach, which one our panelist did mention, right? It's very prudent, and the leadership has to take a very pragmatic approach while looking into what goes well. End of the day, a single technology is not going to work, right? When you use these technologies in silo, you often face roadblocks. It has to be in collaboration, right? There has to be systems that needs to be, talking to each other. Now, when we work with companies, right, we look into the customer as an internal customer and external customer, right? So first set of the customers is basically your employees, your vendors, your suppliers, and then definitely you have your, the B2C, which is the last leg, in terms of interaction. So it's very imperative that you understand where you want to be, what you want to do. So for example, right now, if I look into the overall buying technology trends, when I say technology trends, it's none different than a B2C, because most of us are still looking into the wallet spend. Let me just give you an example. Gone are the days when I used to go without my father for shopping, and he used to tell me, 500 rupees hai mere paas, right? Today, when you go to a shopping complex or, even the general store, right? It's not only your wallet, it's your bank account, sweetheart, right? So it's the bank account. When you go to Paytm and you say that, I got to do a QR code, that's very innovative side of retail. But people fail to understand that, it's not a 500 rupee. I can spend up to 50,000 bucks, right? I hardly remember walking out of DMart, spending less than 1,000 bucks, or probably, shopping on online, that is Amazon, spending less than 2,000 bucks, because, the flexibility that technology brings, to the play. And the last but not the least is, right now when I look into the shopping side, the organization who primarily has a good layer of younger generation, Gen Z, they are getting the word called as, ESG. I'm sure most of you guys would have heard about it, right? The environmental, social, governance, right? So gone are the days when you just look at a couple of certifications and you buy a product, right? They look into all the three aspects and really plays a major role. Thank you.
Very true, very true. And while we are on the topic of technology, a couple of my key takeaways is finding the right technology, making sure that it's fairly scalable and it's also doing the right things for you, right? And it's important to be efficient as well in terms of technology, whether it is cost, whether it is performance, and it needs to bring in some value. It has some improvements, right? So while we are on this topic, Abhijeet, I would want you to give at least one piece of advice to the especially new businesses and the new emerging businesses. Because when it comes to a new startup or a new business, technology is the first thing that they go after, right? And hence, but with technology, efficiencies are also important, right? So what's your advice to them in terms of balancing technology and maintaining efficiencies?
I would just say, guys, just be prudent. Do your homework, your groundwork, your whiteboards, and have a very pragmatic approach, because you can have everything out here in terms of tech world. Tech world is a great spoiler in terms of buying, just like a shopper stop is when we go out in the shopper stop to buy things. We never, we think about buying a pair of jeans and then we eventually walk out with 5, right? Most of the time, it does happen. The BOGO philosophy, right? Buy one, get one free, really pampers you. So when we look into the startups or even the well-established, enterprises, the first thing first is curiosity to learn what exactly that gets on the table, and does it fit with your customer? You can have the best of ER glasses right outside your shop to give you that experience, own factor. Okay, sir, ye aisa dikhega, ye aisa experience hoga, immersive hoga, but does your customer really need that? It's very important to understand. That's number one. Number two, I would say that, in terms, don't go by just the flow, because there's a lot of innovative things that is going to come in the market, right? We're looking at blockchains, right? We're looking at the smart contracts, which are built on blockchains, and so on and so forth. So many things are happening. But does it really fit your customer, your employee needs, right? And last but not the least is, overall your ecosystem and your culture. Because as they say that, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So just be prudent and think twice. Go for a platform that can give you, for example, I would like to say here, from my brand perspective, that is Amrut Software. So Monday.com is one of the, OEMs that we're working very closely. And they have been in the QSR segment, in fashion apparel, they're industry agnostic software. They give you an ability to have a real-time tracking monitoring. There's no point of deploying a platform if you don't know what's happening. There's no point of deploying a platform if only your leadership is using and your grassroots are not, right? It has to be the other way around. There's no point in having a platform which doesn't give you the real stats where you stand. So yeah, that would be my caveat for this session. Thank you.
So I think, today's panel, we had a lot of interesting conversations around importance of knowing your customer, having technology when it comes to product, expansion, being sustainable, and at the same time, what you touched upon was also in terms of being consistent in terms of all the ways, whether what you decide to do, whether it is consistency and customer experience are the key takeaways out here. Before we end the panel, I would like to get a little views on what do you think is the future of retail? How do you see the next 5 years evolving in retail? Satyan, would you like to talk about it?
No, so I think exciting. I think opportunities and opportunity galore. So honestly, 2023 has not been the best, at least for apparel and some of the sectors, maybe lifestyle retail. But that's just, these are things which will happen. With growth comes volatility. You've got to remember, with growth, we are a high growth country. With growth will volatility come. So one big thing which I think, especially for retail, while we all know is the 4th largest market, it's going to double, retail revenue will double in the next 8 to 10 years. Where on the earth can you get 1.3 billion people? 55% of the population is young. So I think all these are real big numbers, and which only excites so many brands and companies. But I'll just share my past experience of when, so especially apparel retail, or if you look at, we still have a large size of unorganized. And I think the biggest opportunity is the unorganized, which will move to organized. As discretionary, as people's per capita income moves up, young consumers become more brand conscious. I think you just have a lot of those consumers joining the funnel. But the big thing which happens here is I've seen in my past when in the consumer electronics, when unorganized move to organized, and the brands which were the best prepared, the most agile, the most consumer-centric brands, really. So you see what happened with Samsung and LG, and you see some brands which actually lost the way. Same thing happened with in telecom, when telecom really saw the surge. In fact, I remember when I joined telecom, it was at 14% penetration, and today I think it'll be at 120. So you have more.
My guess is even more than that.
Yeah, maybe
People
even
have more than one SIM card nowadays.
So when this sort of a surge happens, which brand, as a company, how well are you prepared? How well do you respond to the volatilities, and how do you really estimate or actually get the consumer to wow with your product, with your understanding of the consumer, with your experience, consumer experience you provide? I think the company which will be so it's a question of survival of the fittest, and more we see this happening. In the next 5 years, I see some amount of paise ko paisa khichta hai. You get the things right, the bigger becomes bigger, and the guys who's agile, young, innovative, but is really open to really responding to the change would do better. So that's
So if you know your customer, if you're consistent, you continue to innovate, right? Future is bright.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really bright.
I would like to hear your views as well, Sameer, because we just had that brief chat in terms of how beauty is such an evolving industry today, and not just evolving, but it's a fastest growing industry at this point of time, right? When it comes to beauty, when it comes to, and yours is beauty along with self-care to a certain extent. Where do you see a retail industry for you going in the next 5 years?
I think the industry is very, very exciting and very, very explosive as India is, booming. We've seen the growth in the beauty industry. I personally see it on a very, very hockey stick kind of a growth. But as I would like to play this game is a very calibrated approach. Don't want to just go running, chasing dreams. Per capita consumption of beauty is rapidly going to increase in the next, we're very, very low in India, is less than $10 per individual, which is very small. But over the next 8, 10 years, 15 years, this is what data projects and what research projects is that it's headed to about $30, $40 kind of a consumption, but this time. We are seeing a lot of entry of Indian brands, which is very, very encouraging news because for the first time, Indian beauty is creating brands which are relevant for Indian skin type and Indian consumers rather than getting something from the West, which is a generic product sold in 200 countries, which is very encouraging for Indian entrepreneurs. And we as a company have also decided to embrace and welcome Indian D2C, Indian startup brands, only in the beauty space at the moment. So I think it's very, very healthy times. An opportunity is immense, but coming back to the services part of it, I said we have to be a little careful because of the talent bit, which I said earlier. Tier 2, Tier 3 is entry barriers are very low, but so much so there is also a crunch as far as talent is concerned from the services side. For the product business, immense. But for product retailers, are you getting repeat is what you need to see. One time everybody's buying in a small town or in a large city, but with plethora of brands today, is there repeat? The minute you get a repeat, that's the time you're home. If you're not getting a repeat, then that leaves a question mark with your brand. Yeah.
Interesting. I think, at least for me, it was very insightful. I would love to hear the audiences. Any questions you would like to ask the panel? Yes, yes. Can I have the mic for this gentleman, please?
Yeah, hi. My name is Surinder. I work in the domain of retail experience design. Great insights from a very diverse panel. Before the question, Nielsen and Accenture, recent data has shown that 60 to 70% of consumers, at least the new age consumers, engage and recommend a brand based on their involvement in sustainability. So, how much of sustainability strategies are part of your innovation and efficiency? What you focus?
Interesting. Who would like to take this question?
I'll take it from
All of us can
healthcare,
take it.
and then I think others can follow.
Sure.
For healthcare, innovation of product is a very critical key. Let me give an example. Many of you know that if you're in a shortage of methylcobalamin in your body, which is commonly known as vitamin B12, you have to go to a hospital and take a shot, right? If you go to any of our stores, you will see that there's a strip that is available. Just put it on your tongue, that same 1500 mcg/mu, and that's priced at 12 rupees. So 650 rupees for a shot of vitamin B12 in any of the hospitals versus at 12 rupees, and through the innovation of product that you don't need to swallow the pill, that's a strip. So same and similar innovations we are building in multiple such product range so that for the next generation, they also understand that how this innovation will take, whether it's a paracetamol or whether it's any other, a biotin and similar. So this innovation will take the next rung ahead. I think over to others.
So I think consumers are more and more now looking at brands as a brand persona, what the brand stands for. It's especially Gen Z, millennials, there is so much out there to read and, information. So I think consumers are not just demanding in terms of, product, value, etc., but also what the brand is doing, and you'll hear so many stories of, things going viral and going against the brand. Kanye West, one of the biggest example, how things just, wiped off from a business, So I think some of these things are pushing brands to do more. And in terms of sustainability, like what a lot of brands are doing is, like for us, for example, recycled products. I think a lot of apparel brands are getting into this, Adidas, for example, I'm not just talking about Triumph, but let's say, they are using recycled bottles. Similar for us, we are using recycled fabric. And also in terms of technology, in apparel, there is a lot of waste. So, we are investing so much money into how you reduce that waste and whatever waste that's happening, how you reuse it. So for an example, in our factories, and one thing which I was talking to the panel about also is that we have our own factory against a lot of, other brands who go into third party. And about India, more and more people are now looking at India. More and more companies are looking at India. So people are moving away from China, similar to us. So we have our own factory in India. And we are doing a lot of innovation to reduce that waste. And we make bras. So there is a waste when you cut and a lot of that. The fabric that remains, we reuse it in making briefs, for example. So a lot of these things in terms of packaging as well, how you get into sustainability, how you reuse everything. I think it's very important, and a lot of brands do it, but now more and more brands are talking about it because consumers want to hear, consumers want to look at you as being responsible. So I think it's a very important thing going forward. And I know there is a lot of, I would say, everyone talks about sustainability, but what actual sustainability is, I think consumers are now, more and more looking into that.
Interesting. I think consumers are very well aware today, and it's important for brands to have a purpose and be sustainable. And in my view, more than for the customers or the consumers, I think brands like us, it's important to do what's the right thing, and it's important to be sustainable, because I just feel that brands like us who lead the entire conversation, if not us, then who?
True.
Right?
I would like to just add there that sustainability starts with you and me, right from our homes. And I think that education, right from schools, is where India has to bring the change. If I have to talk about food industry, we are, I think, leading the way. Most big corporate food industries are forced to even report the ESG that Abhijeet was just discussing. So as a brand, we report where we are on the scale and by which year, how much are we going to be carbon neutral and so on and so forth. So what companies like us are doing is going more local, So reducing the food miles, coming more closer to the region that you operate. I'm sure most of us sitting here have already moved out of plastic bottles, carry your own thermal bottles. At homes, we have removed plastic and got into glass bottles. So I think as a culture, it's coming in. As a country, we have to enforce. And as consumers, I'm very happy to see my son, 25-year-old, unless something is sustainable, he won't buy a product. So, I mean, why do you think bigger brands, like Minimalistic, so many brands are really talking about it, going out there, keeping it simple, and communicating it to the customer that let's save the world for a better tomorrow. So it's an onus to all of us sitting here that we must follow that trap.
Totally agree. There's that big screen that's telling me that my time's up. Okay. So thank you very much. And I think the panel is going to be around and they're going to be mingled with all of you. I did see a lot of hands raised. You all can find time with them. Thank you very much.